Okay, hello everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I've got the right time this time, I believe. Hello, hello, Kate. Okay, we are live. This is Fiona Canon, BTC Writers Room. The joke was on me earlier. I started the podcast an hour early. So for those who knew, those who joined me and just went on the journey with me, I appreciate you. But we're at the right time now, I'm happy to say. um, we are super excited about this one. Hello, Julia. Thank you. If you didn't catch me earlier, then do check out the Beyond the Canon videos. I actually started an hour earlier because I'm so enthusiastic, Julia. I am so excited about having Juliet Jux Romero on here live. She is a powerhouse, and for those who do not know her name, please take this time to Google Juliet and also to ensure that you are that you and get your questions ready to ask Juliet when she does join later on today, or in a few minutes, really. Hello.
Hey, Sue. It's been a while.
Interesting, that was interesting. I think that works though, right? Hopefully the people will be really excited about today. We joined an hour earlier because of me. And of enthusiasm about today's episode. But thank you everybody for your patience and just for going on the journey with me. I mean, it was fantastic.
And Bethany. Bethany. Yes, Bethany.
And see that, oh, my cousin Jojo's here and my mum is also here as well. So today, Saru, today is our third Beyond the Canon BTC Writers Room episode, and I was just saying, I keep using the word excited, but there's no other word that I can really conjure up to say just how thrilled I am, how honored we are to have Juliet Jux Romero joining us today. It's going to be an absolute interesting conversation. I'm always excited to have Black sisters with me, and I always celebrate sisterhood, and I always celebrate those who have gone before me. And Juliet Jux Romero for me is somebody who I came across when I was doing the Black Play Archive, read her plays, and absolutely just fell in love with her writing. I hope she doesn't mind me calling her an activist, but I do deem her as one. And she is an exceptional writer. But for those who don't know anything about Beyond the Canon, should we start there? So I'm Simelia Hodge Galloway, but you can call me Sim. Everyone calls
Hi.
me Sim, that's absolutely fine.
I'm Saru. I'm Saru Zaimarifu, but I'm Saru. Everybody calls me Saru, and that's absolutely fine. I've been working with Sim for a few years now, on Beyond the Canon. I actually met her after she had already started Beyond the Canon, which is really quite exciting for me because I saw the work that Semilia was doing, and I absolutely was completely 100% smitten. And I was like, oh my goodness, whatever this woman is doing, I need to be doing it too. And so yeah, and luckily she agreed for me to help. So we've been kind of doing that for the past couple of years. We also have been doing a lot of showcases and monologue showcases, beyond the monologue showcases at drama schools, which is so exciting for us because what we generally tend to do is we bring these incredible works that Samilia put together in her anthology books. Then we get artistic directors of the future directors, which is another organization that Samilia founded and which sort of represents POC directors. And we put them in the same room with students that would not necessarily ever be in that space where they have POC work POC them and POC directors, and we sort of try
Yeah.
and see what that looks like. The evenings themselves are usually spectacular. The pieces are beautiful, so, and the acting is always marvelous. The directors are brilliant, so it's always kind of culminates into this one wonderful celebration of this incredible legacy that we have. And then there's a Q&A that usually follows where we get to hear from some of our greatest, and it's always so well received, and it's something that we are so privileged to actually hold, and it's so much fun. So much.
Yeah, and we want to continue to do them. And we've been having interest from secondary schools as well. If we can do our Beyond the Canon showcases there, and we say yes to all the above. So if you're a secondary school teacher and you're interested in our Beyond the Canon showcases, then please email us, get in touch. Also to say, if you don't know about our showcases, right, then we've got documentaries that are readily available on our Beyond the Canon YouTube channel. So definitely check those out. I think you'll really enjoy them, and you might see a few familiar faces as well for those people who have attended RADA, and let's just say there's somebody who's rather special who went on to perform in Hamilton, so you get to see that too, an interview with him. But you know, we are it's just a privilege really for me. It's important that we recognize that we stand on the shoulders of these amazing phenomenal writers who have really led the way, that have always been there as well. That there's this kind of misconception that, you know, we don't have a legacy when it comes to theatre, when it comes to British history, and that is not true. And I'm so excited that we're going to have Juliet, because Juliet will directly speak to that as well. But before we start, I want to say happy Juneteenth.
Yes.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, it's a holiday that commemorates the abolition of slavery in Texas, which was on June 19th in 1865. So we want to just take this time to really sort of celebrate that. Even if the day's gone, we're still going to be celebrating days and weeks afterwards. So if you don't know about Juneteenth, please do Google it. It's a really important holiday. It recognizes that even though slavery was abolished 2 years prior, that actually in Texas, specifically the people in Texas, it was only 2 years afterwards in which they gained their freedom. So we really want to recognize the 19th of June. Okay, so we've said a little bit about us. If you want any more information about Beyond the Canon, please do join www.beyondthecanon.com. So today we are going to be giving away plays. So we are excited that we are giving away Juliet's plays. Okay, so if you are a student or if you are on an artistic program of any kind, get ready to join me live later. There will be an opportunity for you to win a bundle of Juliet's plays. So what we're going to be doing, this is one of the bundles that we're going to be giving away. Can you see that, everybody? So At the Gates of Gaza, and also that will be with Uppercut. And then we're also giving away another bundle, which is At the Gates of Gaza and The Whip. The Whip. So Juliet's going to be speaking to both of those plays. She will get you informed about what the themes are in these plays and why they're so important to her and why they should be important to you too. Okay, so just to say that if you are a student, again, get ready to go live. So I'm giving people notice this time, because last time you got upset with us because we didn't give people prior notice, right? They didn't know that they had to join me live, so they were like, oh, my face isn't done and everything else. So just make sure that you're ready. Make sure you're ready. I'll be calling you in.
If you are just skint, then there is a possibility for you to get all of these plays that we'll be giving away during the BTC Writers Room series. We are fortunate enough to have Matthew and Drama, Oberon Books. They have donated these books, but they have also...
Playwrights Canada Press.
Yes, and Playwrights Canada Press. They've donated these books, but they've also provided us with discount codes. Playwrights Canada Press, 25% off all of their stock at their website. And Auburn Books, Methuen Drama, Bloomsbury, they have given us 30% off and 45 if you're going as far as getting digital copies. So there is discounts available. Just visit our website, www.beyondthecanon.com. And if you go to Sim's Top Shelf or BTC Writers Room on our website, there is more information about all of that. So please definitely, definitely get to buying if you can. These discounts are phenomenal.
Or be ready to get them.
Win them.
Okay, so
We agree they should be studied in secondary schools. Very much
they
so.
should be studied in secondary school, and this is something that we are in the process of working on. So if you want to get involved, if you are a secondary school teacher and you are as enthusiastic as we are about diversifying the curriculum, then do get in touch with us. So yeah, so let's just talk about Juliet. Let's talk about Juliet, how fantastic she is. I mean, she's somebody who, for me, is an exceptional writer. And I think that at some stage as well, we're going to be talking about what it is to be a Black British female writer in the UK and get Juliet's take on that. I've got my own views in terms of that. So that will make for a very, very juicy conversation. But Juliet is an award-winning playwright and journalist. She is currently commissioned at the Donmar Warehouse, Manchester Royal Exchange Theatre, and the Royal Shakespeare Company Swans Theatre. We've already sort of highlighted some of her plays. I'm not going to go too much into detail because there's loads of questions that I will ask her later to do with her plays and the catalogue of plays that she has written. But I just want to leave that there for now. But for now, we're going to say goodbye, toodaloo, to Saru, and we're going to bring Juliet on.
And then we'll have Juliet. Okay, I'm out,
and
everybody.
we'll have Juliet, and then we'll bring Saru back before the end of the podcast. Okay, Saru?
Yeah, I'm
then I will... Wait, why is somebody trying to call me right now? Do not call me. Okay, so let's... Oh, Juliet, it says that you're unable to join. So, Juliet, I think what you might need to do is if you just go into your Saru, can you get in contact with Juliet so that she can help her to join? But I think it's probably something to do with your allowing Instagram to access your video and your photographs, etc. So if you can just, Saru, if you can just help with that, that'll be fantastic. So while Juliet just gets online or gets that all sorted out with her phone, then I'll be able to bring her in. But please use this time wisely. Use this time to think about if there's any questions that you want to pose to Juliet. Remember, what's so great about Juliet is that she's not come from what people would possibly classify as the traditional routes into being a playwright. Even if there is there such thing as a traditional route into playwright? I don't know, but people would assume that, you know, you start off with, you know, doing the, I don't know, the Royal Court courses, etc., but she was a journalist first. So if you have any questions that come up in terms of journalism and how that plays into her craftswomanship as a playwright, then please do, you know, feel free to ask any of those questions. And we're going to get Juliet on here as soon as we possibly can. But yeah, this is going to make for a very, very exciting conversation around. Let me know, actually, have you heard of Juliet Jewkes Romero before today? Have you heard of her? If so, have you seen any of her plays? I would really love to hear from anybody that's online currently, because I think it's really important that we raise awareness to playwrights that exist within our, we call it the Beyond the Canon library, right? But let us know if you've heard of Juliet before. I'm sorry. And if so, in what context? Like, how have you heard of her name? I'm really hoping that we can get Juliet on here as soon as possible. I've been doing these podcasts with my mum as well, so I'm guessing she's having the same issue, which is actually just allowing your phone to access your video, etc. But yeah, please feel free to sort of write those questions down now. Comment below if there's anything you want me to ask Juliet when she joins. this is going to be, it's going to make for a really, really exciting. Has any of you seen any of these plays? At the Gates of Gaza, Uppercut, or The Whip? Have any of you seen any of those productions? That would be also great to know. I was saying when I joined an hour earlier, which was my mistake, I was saying that for me, I really love doing this because as much as I have an extensive library of plays in my house, I always consider myself as a student. And I'm always, always learning. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do, really. Like, we never really get to that point where we can say we know it all. Actually, we should always remain really open-minded to learn more. And that's what we're encouraging. We always encourage students to do that, but we should also encourage those who are leaders in our organizations and education institutions to always keep sort of an open mind. So I am really praying that we get Juliet on here. Let me see if I can. Yes. Oh, yes. I think it's time. Oh, Julia! We did it! Oh no, I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you off and then join you back again, and let me see if I get the sound that way. Okay, Julia? Okay, it's going. We're going to do it. Don't worry, guys. Stay with us.
I've got.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I'm going to take you off and then join you back again, and let me see if I get the sound that way.
Okay.
Okay, it's
Right.
going. We're going to do it. Don't worry, guys. Stay with us. There's a really weird thing that's happening.
Can you hear me?
Myself. 1 minute. Dude, let me try one more time. I'm going to take
Okay.
you off and join you back again, and let me see if I get the sound that way. Okay. Okay, it's going. We're going to do it. Don't worry, guys. Stay with us. What is happening? Oh, 1 minute.
I can hear sound really well. I'm just turning up the volume.
Oh, it's all going a bit bonkers. I don't know why that is. Right. Julia, is there a way for you to end the video? It's not. Oh, no, there it is. Okay, there it is. Okay, sorry guys, just bear with us. I don't know why this is happening. I think that Instagram is playing up a little bit. What I could hear, there was like a bit of a delay. So I could hear my voice being played over and over again. So we're going to just try this again. Apologies. Come on, Instagram, be our friend today. The joys of modern technology. Let's pray that this happens, that this works for us. I've just added Juliet. Yeah, there was a delay. Yeah, Bethany, thank you for that. I'm just trying to add Juliet again. Let's see if it allows me to do that. It's been playing up a bit today. Don't know why that is.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're quite faint though. Is there a way you can turn up?
I've got, right, okay. I might have to turn it. Can you hear me all right now? How about that?
Can everybody hear Juliet? You sound a bit faint on my side of things, but if everyone can hear you, I'm good to go.
I'm not sure why that would be. I'm just going to hold the phone. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, they're saying yes.
Okay,
they're saying yes.
Excellent, 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 excellent.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of our BTC Writers Room. It is such an honour to have you.
Well, it's an honour to be here. I really appreciate it. And as you said, you know, in your introduction, we met when you were doing the archives at the.
That's right.
My goodness, I mean, hey, what a journey, you know. And yeah, here we are.
I remember. Do you remember we met at the National Theatre? Do you remember us having like tea and cake or something?
remember it really, really well. And, you know, watching your journey and what you have managed to create through, this is theatre activism, you know, and you're giving voice to, you know, people of color, you know, in whether they're directors, writers, you know, and people who work, you know, behind the scenes in theatre, you know, and you started off with this idea, and it has just absolutely grown. And I think that you've had a major impact on the industry, actually. And you know, this is what theatre should be. It's a political act. So thank you for what you've done.
Oh, well, thank you. We're gonna be talking about you. Today's about you, Juliet. We're gonna be dedicating this episode to you, and I can't wait to get into it. So shall we? Let's get into it, because I've got some questions that I want to ask you, and I can't wait to hear your responses to these questions. Okay, so first of all, I want to acknowledge your route from journalism, international news, may I say, and documentary making
Yes.
to
Yes.
writing plays for the stage. And just like, how did you make that transition, and why did that transition come about?
I've always been interested in the telling of the human condition, for want of a better phrase. Storytelling, what makes people tick, what is it about us, you know, in our everyday lives that we need to share. And journalism seemed to, I had a very romantic notion of journalism. I was a huge fan of Zora Neale Hurston, and I wanted to follow in her footsteps because I think she was a journalist, she was an anthropologist, she was a folklorist, and I wanted to be able to go to countries like Haiti and Cuba and basically follow in her footsteps. And I thought, you know, well, I'll become a journalist. I wanted to get into cooking. I joined World Service Radio, and then was able to go abroad and make documentaries. And then I joined TV, which was slightly bonkers, you know, 24-hour newsroom. And for me, I felt news had become very reactionary, and there wasn't the money available to make the kind of centered around, you know, people's stories, whether, you know, you're in a refugee camp or you're in a country like Haiti, which I finally did get to. And I just felt it had become this kind of like treadmill of non-stop news without as much context. You know, I think you know, news is very important, but I took a year out. I went to Goldsmiths. I did an MA in writing for performance, just to give myself headspace and to explore what storytelling could be, because I saw a parallel between theatre and news and journalism, because it's all about people's stories. And I never really looked back. I did go after my MA, but it wasn't long before I decided to try to become a full-time writer, which that was a journey in itself, a really challenging one. I mean, you know, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I think that's part of the journey and the process.
And so, like, when I think about journalists that have entered into the sort of the theatre industry, actually, and because I started an hour earlier, so I was so excited about meeting with you today. Anyway, you'll see that on another video. I was sort of talking about, you know, is there any regrets? You know, just in terms of like, we know the theatre industry. But anyway, alas, that was me just making a bit of a joke on the last video. But when I think of those who have come from the journalist world into the arts, I think of you, I think of Satinder Chauhan, I think of Lydia Adetunji, and but I think of you first and foremost. You are the first name that I think of, and I wonder how journalism has impacted on the stories that you tell and your writing process.
I think that I'm very interested in big stories, and what I've learned through theatre is to be able to tell them, you know, through the local, as August Wilson is so brilliant at, you know, at doing. But I am a very political animal. I love news and current affairs, because, you know, for me, it's our opportunity to really kind of examine, you know, how the world ticks, to be able to compare and contrast what people's expectations are of their government, whether you're living in, you know, Brazil or Haiti or Ethiopia, you know, or in Germany, you know, what is it about the way that we organize as, you know, communities and society that is different, or, you know, has kind of like parallel. So journalism allowed me to kind of explore that. And, you know, one of the highlights was the opportunity to go to countries like Cuba and Haiti and interview people about how they saw existence, you know, different, you know, what was the difference between surviving in Havana to surviving in, you know, Huddersfield or Newcastle. So, and because I was able to travel and to write a lot about international affairs, I just, you know, I kind of like built this incredible library of experiences and you know, different kind of like geopolitical locations. I mean, I remember when I went to Ethiopia and traveling right up to the border of Somalia and seeing all of these abandoned tanks, which were Russian, which they were like kind of like the dead carcasses of dinosaurs. And the story behind that was this war fought by proxy between, you know, America backing the Ethiopians and the Soviets backing the Somalis. And, you know, I wrote from our own correspondent about that. But, you know, ultimately for me, I can tell so much in a news report, in a news bulletin. You're lucky if you get a minute 30. You know, you're doing really well if it's a headline story and you're getting 2 minutes. It taught me to really research and to be very concise about how I told news. But, you know, theatre is such a crucible for storytelling. So, for example, I did a play for the RSC about the disappearance of, you know, these Mexican teacher training students. I think it was like 48 were abducted at gunpoint. And at that time, I had gone to freelance at Sky News because I'd slightly fallen flat on my face when I left the BBC. I mean, it got really tough financially, and I thought, yep, I'm going to have to go back to a newsroom. And I remember reporting on this story. It was terrible, and the parents were going into the hills in, you know, the Ayotzinapa, and they kept finding these graves full of people, unidentified, but they didn't belong to the students. And I think it was like the RSC approached me to write a play about the abduction of those students. And it was amazing because with the news story, you know, people, or rather I'd say that, you know, news editors will lose a certain amount of interest. You know, it's very difficult to keep a story like that going, particularly if it's, you know, international. But when we did it for the RSC, number one, they paid us to go to Mexico so we could interview people, so we weren't patronizing the subjects, you know, the parents of the disappeared. But people were joining Amnesty International as they were walking out of the theatre. People were in tears. They couldn't believe what was actually going on in Mexico. And we were able to bring it to life, and we used puppetry and music and Mexican wrestling, which was lucha libre. I insisted on going to see this because that's like working class theatre. It's fantastic. And they bring popcorn and beer bottles. You get on your feet and you're cheering, and it's so theatrical. And we used that. We brought Mexico back with us, and you can't get in news bulletin. And I think that's what's so special about theatre. I get very passionate about it, as you can see.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to just quickly just pop my headphones in because it might help me just to hear you and just a little. I don't know why my sound has kind of gone. Just a bit louder.
Right? Can you hear?
Say something again.
Just pop the phone a bit. How about that?
Yeah, maybe that's a lot better. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Thank you. Actually, I can just do that. Thank you. You know, I could talk to you for, as you know, we had such an energized and fantastic conversation when we met, just about your travels and your experience and the research that you have gathered and how you use. I like to think we're quite similar like that. Like we go out there and we see what's out there, and then we use that, and we try to find a way then to articulate what we've seen and our experiences to the world, and whether it is creating initiatives, or whether it's creating the brilliant plays that you've written, and I really, really encourage everybody to buy Juliet's plays and to see productions, just follow Juliet. But a question that I have for you, which is, I don't know how you would answer this, but who do you write for?
Wow, that is a good question. So when I first started writing, and I went off to Goldsmiths, and I actually, the first play I wrote was at the Gates of Gaza, and the first draft I was told read like a panorama documentary, and I was most offended. So I had to write this, and I guess then I was thinking, well, who am I writing for? You know, am I thinking of the kind of audience that what is panorama? And I eventually realised that I had to write for myself, because, you know, when I first began writing, just the idea of people and eyes and judgment would give me writer's block. And I actually learned to write from a real point of passion. And so I will write for myself because I want to share something about the world that either I don't know about, that I want to learn about. So I do spend a lot of time researching the subject. So, for example, with At the Gates of Gaza, and to be honest, that I wrote that from a point of anger because, and I think I've got some colleagues, some BBC colleagues who had tuned in a bit earlier, but I had an argument with a line manager. I was working for BBC World and presenters and not allowed to wear poppies. And the reason given was that an overseas audience wouldn't know what the poppies, you know, was symbolic of. And I was livid because you're broadcasting to the Caribbean, to Africa, to the Middle East. I don't know a Caribbean island without cenotaphs in plural. You know, I'm not talking about one. You know, they are everywhere, all over Africa, because it was a world war across the Middle East. Of course, these audiences understands the symbolism of a poppy. Now, you know, there are arguments as to, you know, whether you do present on air using a symbol like that, but on the, you know, the national channel, presenters will wear a poppy. So I thought it was rather patronizing that an overseas audience weren't expected to know what this meant. So I went off and I went to the Imperial War Museum. I learned a lot about the British West Indies Regiment, and I went back to my line manager, and I was telling him about this. He'd never heard of the British West Indies Regiment. Why is it that all know about Anzacs, the Australians, the New Zealanders who came and fought in Gallipoli, you know, and on the Turkish front, and a similar amount of West Indians came and fought in the First World War, and nobody knew about it. 81 West Indian men received medals for distinguished action, and 49 for commendations, what they call mentions. And this really annoyed me. and so, you know, I ended up writing that play. And once I've kind of, you know, got that heat, and then I'm able to go and find out more. And I went to the Imperial War Museum and they gave me a desk, and I would go in regularly, and they knew me, and they would give me diaries of guys who had, you know, had met an end, which was, that was another level of responsibility. And I felt it was very important as well for, you know, young Black children. I mean, I'm of the second generation, but there are a lot of young Black children at school who don't know that they can wear poppies because, you know, our forefathers fought in the First and Second World War. So when I wrote At the Gates of Gaza, after I had my mishap with my first draft, which, as I said, kind of like read like a panorama documentary, I then realized, yeah, I'm writing this for myself because I'm learning, actually. I didn't know this stuff, you know. And I think that when you're approaching something from, you know, a real sense of educating oneself, you can hopefully take other people along a journey. And you're not lecturing, you're just taking them, you're unraveling things that have been concealed for political convenience.
Yeah, it's so funny, Julia. I was just having a conversation with LTC, in fact, and London Theatre Consortium. People that don't know what LTC stands for, and I literally had a very similar conversation, which was when we're thinking about diversifying curricula, and when we're thinking about the education of how do we get more people knowledgeable of our presence in this country and around the world. I think that the sad reality is that we, even in an education setting, we usually act as both the student and the teacher.
Yeah.
Like we can't just enter into an establishment and be just a student, because the lack of diversity within these institutions means that we are then having to do sort of another course, really, which is a personal course of us trying to see a reflection of ourselves in the history books, whether it's the theatre history books or whether it's just history books per se. And similar to you, really, when I directed for Coloured Girls, which was at Roehampton, it was the very first time that I had the opportunity to do something of my own choosing, and that's what I chose to do. And it was very much done in protest. It was very much done as a way to say, you see me, I exist, I'm here, and we are a part of the history, we are a part of the canon of all these great works. So I can definitely identify with you on that. I want to talk to you about being a Black female writer in the UK, right? Many people don't know the history behind your first play, At the Gates of Gaza, which, as you said, was written as part of your MA course, and it was written in 2001, but I believe it didn't receive a production until 2008.
That's right.
And it made me really think about, just in terms of my experience working on the Black British Play Archive and seeing the disparity. I mean, we already know there's a lack of plays that are produced by POC creatives, writers and creatives, but there's definitely such a disparity between the men and the Black female playwrights. And so we see that because we start to see certain playwrights, they have one play produced and then we don't hear from them again, right? So in terms of having a sustained and ongoing rich and healthy career, that doesn't really tend to happen, from my knowledge of looking at sort of history of playwrights. But I know that you're now commissioned by the Donmar Warehouse, Manchester Royal Exchange, and also the RSC. But I just wondered, like, what's your take on the relationship as it stands today when it comes to theatres and Black female playwrights?
I think it's still a tough road. I think it's, so when I started out, I mean, you know, the scene was very, very different. And I don't think that the support was there. And similarly, like, for example, when I was in the BBC, there wasn't, you know, there were a lot of battles to be had. There was no Me Too, you know, there weren't any particularly BAME groups with teeth or support. So you had to fight on your own. And, you know, I did my MA in 2001. And I think what it was, because I had a career before I started writing, I'd learned a lot of resilience. And I understood the power of storytelling, and I just decided that I don't care how long it takes me, I'm going to stick at this and I'm not going away. Because, as you said, what, you know, you would see other writers who would have, you know, one play and then they would go away. And similarly, you know, when I was at the Beeb, you know, they would bring in youngsters and put them on a 6-month contract, and then at the end of it, they're gone. No nurturing, no investment in their career. And because of what we've got now and all of this, you know, goodwill because of Black Lives Matter, a lot of companies are saying things have got to change, and that we will hold them to account. You know, not going to get away with lip service here. So I think that when I started out in 2001, I think there was a lot of lip service. But I think what I also managed to do was find people who were interested in how I saw the world and my politics, and who weren't afraid of the rubble of my imagination. Because I think I could easily have kind of like drifted away. And you're right, it took a long time. I spoke to, I think it was Lucy Kirkwood who wrote Chimerica, and I would go to these meetings at the BBC. They'd gather writers, and you'd be the only black one there, or there might be two others. And Chimerica was held up as this incredible play. It's really successful, but what they didn't tell us was that that took 7 years to get into production. So you think that everything over hit, and you're thinking, oh my God, this is taking too long. This is not going to happen. I think the other thing that helped me, because I didn't leave the BBC immediately. So and my advice to a lot of, particularly young, black writers, make sure you've got a second string, because, it isn't easy. And you need to, because it's very difficult to write when you're worried about money. So, I think thinking about, like financial survival, but while holding firm to what you believe in. And as I said, I've been through the crucible of news where I hit a glass ceiling at speed. And and because of that, it just made me realize that if you really want something, you've got to hold on to it. I was blessed. I mean, my parents, who, being first generation, came here in the 60s, they were equally resilient, and they weren't, what's the word, too perturbed when I decided to leave the security of paid work to embark on this particular road. But I just thought I'd rather die trying, actually. You live once, but look at the Obamas. They have a deal with Netflix. Why do you think that is? It's story. It's who we are. You go to these caves in Algeria, France, and parts of Africa, and you see those handprints on the walls, made by people who were trying to, understand their environment and then tell stories. It's what separates us from every other living organism. It's our ability to tell stories, and I think it was Albert Camus who said that, writers are there to stop civilization from destroying themselves. I realise that's quite a long answer to your question, and I hope
No, I love it. You know what, Juliet? Like, I still feel like we should find a way to do like a masterclass with Juliet Jilts Romero. Like, put your thumbs up if you agree with me. I mean, just the wealth of knowledge, and I just love the fact that we talk about resilience. I mean, we could even unpack that, can't we, really? Do you know what I mean? In terms of what does that mean? How do you nurture? How do you gain resilience, really? And I think that it's really, for me, really inspiring to see sort of the energy behind the movement now, which I think that for me, it feels very, very new. I mean, I remember protesting in the streets and being the only one. Do you know what I mean? And like looking around, like, where are all the people in the arts? Where are they? And so, how do you feel really about sort of this young generation, this energy that feels that, just a response to the Black Lives Matter movement, a response to Brexit, and we can't take our foot off the pedal. But how do you feel optimistic and hopeful, or how do you feel about what's happening in the UK right now?
I feel really optimistic, and I realise that in a sense I've been through that with the ANC, anti-apartheid marches and all the rest of it, and while I go out and support the young people, I really feel that that's my role now. It's a kind of midwifing and bringing the experience that I've had to those young people. But they're handling this, they really are. I mean, and when John Boyega, lost his shit, I was thinking, lost his shit, and for him, because he realised that he isn't defined by being an actor. It's about he is. I don't define myself as a writer. I define myself as Juliet, who is part of the African diaspora. That's really important to me, because if I box myself into thinking I am just a writer, I will find it difficult to have the energy to go out and do what I do. It has to be from the personal. And to see John, you know, do what he did was truly inspiring. And it almost gave other people permission to think, yeah, it's okay to be angry. You know, there's nothing wrong with anger. You know, we're often, and particularly when you're second generation and, you know, your parents have come and they want you to work hard and to study hard, put your best foot forward. Anger wasn't something that was always available to you, and that was almost a path that you learned when you left home and began to knock heads of people who didn't have your worldview. Because to be honest, I mean, I grew up in a house where there was black art, there were black books, and you know, it was a bit of a shock when I left, and you know, and then having to take that kind of journey and realize, well, no, this is who I am. And you know, you in the beginning you kind of cut your cloth, and then you get to the stage where it's like, no. And for me, leaving the BBC was part of that. You know, I realized that to be, and thank you for describing me as an activist, because it's like, wow, I mean, I couldn't do that in a newsroom, you know. And I'm not saying that you know, that there are, you know, black journalists who I think are really good. They're fighting the fight, and we need them in there. But I had got to a stage in my career where I needed to leave in order to write the stories that I'm writing, because, you know, I wanted to kind of intersect with society in a different way, and to ask questions that are politically inconvenient without, making my line manager's hair fall out, or you know, whatever.
Oh, make it fall out. It's fine. It'll grow back.
It's like, and why, you know, I wrote the whip. I mean, you know, the idea that British taxpayers had been paying you know, paid to slave owners up until 2015. You know,
yes.
I knew I wanted to write about slavery, and for a long time I didn't know how to do it, because a lot of what I saw I didn't want to repeat. And that was no disrespect to the stories that were already there. One thing that I did feel strongly about was that, and what I learned was that the majority of slaves were sent to the Caribbean and Latin America. The story for African Americans is foremost because of Hollywood and the progress and the strides that black writers made in America. Now, obviously you think of Roots, and I remember after 12 years a slave, there was big debate. A lot of people say, oh, we're tired of slavery. And I'm like, I'm not done. I haven't even started. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't care if I haven't started. But the trick is to come at it from an angle that people do not expect. So, you know, when people discovered that, and also that slavery wasn't abolished in 1833, you know, that's the narrative. Because what they did was that they forced, you know, the allegedly freed slaves into unpaid apprenticeships for the same owners. They recruited a police force shipped out to the Caribbean to police the apprentices. So you could be arrested for laziness and made the punishment was this treadmill, and you'd be strapped up by your wrists, and you'd have to keep this thing going. And, you know, God forbid you fall asleep, or if you're a woman, your skirts get caught, you lose your legs for laziness. You know, you're tired probably, and also your previous owner doesn't have the same responsibility to care for you as if you were his property. So not only did they get this fantastic amount of money, so the father of Gladstone, he made the modern equivalent of £83 million. 83 million. And then he got reverse compensation because the slaves had to work for him for free under this apprenticeship scheme. It was supposed to run for up to 7 years. They had to get rid of it in 1838 because of the rebellions, and also English people became quite politicized actually, and began to petition to see these apprenticeships ended because slavery wasn't delivered. And so, like, for example, when the Edward Colston statue came down, and people are upset. are they vandalizing this and not realizing that this has been an affront to, you know, the community for so long?
Yes.
It's been going on for a long time, and it's only because people don't know the history. And you know, they don't know. 125 odd years later, they don't know that their tax money went to filling the pockets of these people. You know, Colston could afford to be a philanthropist and build almshouses and schools off the blood, the rape, the
Yes.
exploitation, and the abduction of slaves. Some 30 million taken out of the African continent. You know, I mean, when you think about that, and this is where I get very political in the sense that that was the seeds of capitalism as we know it. And I don't think an economist is worth his salt if he doesn't understand what the transatlantic slave trade did and how it shaped capitalism as we see it today. So I was made to take out 30 pages from the whip, which was very painful for me. But, you know, we managed to get a story together, you know, that I researched in the House of Commons library. I read Hansard, I read select committee reports from the time. I wrote a lot of the scenes when I was in the House of Commons because I couldn't believe what I was reading. The debates about, you know, can a Negro, you know, earn money? What will he do with it? You know, so again, that was a real labor of love. And you know, I had a fantastic journey, great dramaturg in Pippa Hill at the RSC, who actually she'd commissioned me for The Other Place, which is a smaller stage, and I turned in a page treatment, and she laughed and she said, "You and I both know that this is not going to fit into
Right.
Yes. I'm for the Swan." And that was the journey. And also they knew, so the issue with the HMRC announcing, saying, you know, fun fact for the day, you know, everyone should know that they helped, you know, end slavery, you know, by you know, with their money going into this compensation plan, and they had to then delete it. I think they deleted the tweet within about 4 minutes. But this is a problem with social media. Captions, you know, David Olusogu was all over it. The next thing you know, national press. So I was aware of the compensation plan, but so the tweet actually went out by the time I'd kind of like hit the second draft. But it gave me real impetus. It's like there's an urgency here.
Yes.
And when you see David Lammy in the House of Commons talking about this, you know, and you know, I've got a website, the amount of mail I get, and from overseas, you know, I've been interviewed in programs and TV programs in Canada and the United States. You know, people, they can't believe, because what happened in America, they took the idea of, you know, compensation for slave owners to Congress, and they couldn't agree, you know, so it was flawed. They you know, at the end of the day, they managed to end a despicable trade, because they knew, British politicians knew, that they couldn't sustain this industry. But in America, they couldn't agree, and it led to the Civil War. I think it was some 600,000 left. I'm being very careful because I know that your husband is probably listening and I want to get my facts right.
He said he's learning from you right now. I think everybody is learning from you right now. This is the education that we do not get, right? So right now, everybody is just listening to every single word you say, Juliet. This is absolutely incredible. And this is the reason why we had to have you on our BTC Writers Room, because it's so important that we use our platform to educate, and educate in the ways that you're describing, you know. So well, this is
want this on the national curriculum, so they're really pushing that as well. It, you know, it should be on the national curriculum. People need to know, you know. Definitely. And these statues, I mean, I think that Edward Colston statue should be in a museum, you know, and given context, put it in a museum. Or the Confederate monuments, which are particularly offensive, put them in a museum, invite people to come and discuss it. But you can't celebrate that. They can't just be stood there, you know, as a monument to,
Exactly.
you know, a victory seen through, you know, uh, the eyes of, you know, one set of society, or just this white gaze. That's wrong. But this is why, going back to you asking me about the young people today, as I said, they've got it handled. And the difference, so like with so in 1963 we had Martin Luther King and Andrew Young and the March on Washington, you know, the I Have a Dream speech. Gary Young wrote a fantastic book about that speech. Now, you know, we've got a march plan that Al Sharpton's called, and one of my former colleagues will be producing that live in August. The difference is that there is a true rainbow coalition of people coming together, and I think that this is very important, that everybody is outraged by what happened to George Floyd. We are not alone. You know, when you see the Amish, when I saw that YouTube video of the Amish, you know, they left their farms, you know, and their plows behind, and they're out there and they've got placards saying Black Lives Matter. And like, I wish Martin Luther King could see that. Or, you know, Taylor Swift, I mean, you know, tweeting, because, you know, Trump would like to think of her as a poster girl for his base. No, she came out fighting and said, no, this is.
She came out with her own documentary as well. It was.
This is different, and this is led by Black Lives Matter, and we're bringing people along with us. And, you know, as I said, you know, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, imagine if they got to see this. This is different. So what's going to happen in you know, August will look different, but it will be spent by Black Lives Matter. And this will keep going, because then we've got the elections, the American elections in November.
Yes.
All of this is because of what has happened politically, you know, in the United States. The abuses, you know, like with the police force. I don't know whether you managed to see the Watchmen.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and the way that they.
If you haven't seen, I have to say this though, if you have not seen The Watchmen, please do yourself a favor and watch it. Watch the series. Like, it is incredible. And I think that's what it is as well. It's the content, it's the work that's coming out right now and being published and being produced, which, you know, I think of those writers that were writing politically before, that we found it really hard to get a home. And seeing things like The Watchmen does give me hope. I'm like, wow, if that can have that can carve out its own space, then that's definitely such the progress. You can see the progress that's being made.
People didn't know about. I mean, we knew about Tulsa because we have that. We're curious. We'll read about, you know, the race riots, and that's why getting storytelling is so important, and why, you know, I love Lorraine Hansbrough. She wrote TV scripts. She wrote a TV, and they were all turned down as superb, but they were too radical.
Yes,
that breaks my heart. That's heartbreaking. You know
what, Juliet, I'm going to have to stop you there, because you know what we're going to have to do? Because Instagram only gives us an hour, and if you, like me, are finding this conversation so damn juicy, please, like, we're going to have to sign off and sign back on again. Please join us, because we've got just so much to talk. Julie, this is why I love you so much, right? And this is why we were in the National Theatre coffee shop, whatever it was, for a long time talking. You know, so let's if you can, so just do exactly what you did before, Juliet. Let's come back on again. Everybody else, please come with us, please rejoin, and I'll be as quick as I can doing that. I need to save this and share it, and then I need to join again, so just bear with me, give me a couple of minutes to do that. But hold that thought, Juliet. This is so damn juicy. I love our conversations. All right, see you guys in a bit. Take care. Bye.